welcome to our listeners. We are certainly happy to be with you again for another week. Just reminding those who are joining us via Radioland on Bridge 99 FM, those who are listening in on JFJ's YouTube platform, again, thank you so much. This is Let's Start Justice. My name is Michael Jackson, Executive Director for JFJ.
And I'm Jade Williams, the Policy and Advocacy Specialist. Michael, with all of that intro, I think you was going to remind them, say this is a call-in show.
Oh, yes. So you can call in at 676-4996, or you can WhatsApp your views at 239-7583. We love to hear from you and hear your perspectives, certainly. Today we're not doing well. I can tell you it was not a good Easter holiday for me at all.
Yes, it was a virus-laden holiday.
Yeah.
For many members of staff, I think.
I'm COVID-free, though. I did my COVID check over the holiday. I just have some semblance of a flu. But, we're going to make do, and we're going to ensure that our personalities are up and going, as not to bore our listeners to death for the week, for the hour. Yeah?
Well, I guess they'll see no difference from me.
I don't know how to respond to that at all. But anyway, happy Tuesday again. You see how the vibes start coming up? Because when we're talking justice and human rights, we have to perk up ourselves a little bit, yes?
Absolutely.
All right. So we're going to be discussing the matter of civics among our youth and that nationalistic pride. I think, a little bit of apathy going on among our youngsters. And it's something that we're going to be delving a little bit deeper in towards for the substantive part of the program.
Yes.
But as usual, before we go into the program, we're just going to be doing our human rights recap of the week. And I think it spans from last week or the week prior, when we look at the national statistics coming from the Jamaica, the JCF,
yes,
the constabulary force, which indicates that the statistics for major crimes, they're trending downwards. I think some 20% decrease. And that is certainly welcome news in terms of murder rates going down, other major crimes such as rape and sexual assault going down. And when intelligence-based policing works, it is always good to laud our security forces, certainly. But in keeping with that, there was an article in this Sunday paper written by Corey Robinson, and he interviewed several noted psychologists and sociologists, including Dr. Orville Taylor, among others. And it was an interesting read because their perspective, and we've discussed this on the show with Dr. Leighton, for example, treating crime as a public health problem. And I liked the article and I liked the perspectives. Clearly not everything we would agree with. But what it sends the signal to and the importance of it is dealing with both crime prevention and crime control, as we have conversations in really grappling with this crime monster. For example, decades worth of ignoring certain communities, and quite frankly, we can't forget our political past, which is rooted in violence, and our politicians of the past have utilized gangs as their own little proxies, army, yes, for securing victory in what they call safe seats. We can't forget our history to deal with the present. So it was a very good article, and it focuses on dealing with the family issues, going into the communities and ensuring that our youngsters, for example, they're educated on key things, the importance of employment, really dealing with this again as a public health crisis that you can't tackle by just focusing on training the JCF, which is important. We need to bolster the capacity of JCF, but we have to be dealing with their core issues at hand.
I think, to be honest, the public health framing is just a more palatable way, or I should say just a different way of framing something that I think many members of civil society, just general social commentators would have said is that
for years now.
Yes, for many years, and going as far back as our earliest kind of crime reforms.
Yeah.
To say that the focus on harsh penalties is misguided, that we need to have a holistic approach where we are tackling the social and other issues that are driving crime and the crime rates. So I am happy to see again another set of experts coming with another similar perspective. And to be honest, having recently done some research in a sort of related area in terms of penalties, I can say that this is not an anecdotal perspective. The research extends beyond our jurisdiction to show that harsher penalties very, very rarely is a deterrent to crime.
And Jade, for me as a mother, I like to have conversations with my youngster. He's 14 and his friends. And he said, Mommy, listen to me. If when you're at school and you're being charged to take the mollies and the gangster tune and all of these things are approaching you, and and he said, with the greatest of respect to you, you're not rich, but you're just stressing yourself out. You're not my ideal role model. This is what a 14-year-old is saying to me. And he says, when you have children who are growing up without parental support, without somebody saying to you, look in the mirror and doing self-affirmation that you're great, you're smart, he says, what chance do youngsters really have? And this is coming from a 14-year-old. So, I always try to look at the perspectives in different ways. And if a youngster can look at us and say that to us, it really demonstrates the importance that we need to go a little bit broader. And there was also another article in Jamaica Observer wherein an ex-convict spoke to some youngsters, and the youngsters in the high school, I don't remember the name now, they reacted positively to his words, and they said, this is putting me on the right path, stay away from crime. And I think we need more of those reformed individuals who can speak to our youngsters to say, this is not the life that you want. Focus on your book.
Yes, but I think with those things, we also have to have the support to allow them to focus on their book.
Absolutely. All right, so over to you.
Yes, so we'll go straight into our right of the day today, which is a part of our right to due process. And it says, all proceedings of every court and proceedings related to the determination of the existence of or the extent of a person's rights, including the announcement of the decision by the court, shall be held in public. So what this basically means is that where a matter comes before the court, any matter, but also a matter that may affect your civil rights, whether or not they're trying to determine if these rights exist, or they're trying to determine how far these rights go that do exist, the result of that matter should be public record. One thing that I have found is that you may not find an entire judgment, but as it relates to the decision in the matter, that is something that's normally reported and covered in our local news.
And as you mentioned, the right to due process, there was another article, Jade and listeners, that I felt it was important to mention as you were speaking. Chief Justice Sykes mentioned that 7 of the nation's court are backlog free.
Amazing.
And I said kudos to the Chief Justice and his team, but I couldn't help but wonder the implications the mandatory minimums may very well likely have. And I would hope that those who sit in the legislature would be heeding to the warning of Chief Justice Brian Sykes when he says that the government is going down a slippery slope, a wrong path, in excessive mandatory minimums, because 7 courts backlog free is something certainly to celebrate. And again, big up to you, Chief Justice, and again, the judges that sit in the different courts and all the team across the court administration division.
No, absolutely. And I think it just goes back to the same conversation where we're saying we need to have a holistic approach, because we look at that side of things. But then we also can see the public's perspective in wanting to see what they consider to be proportionate punishments to the crimes that are being committed. So again, like the Chief Justice would have done in his public statements before, we encourage the government to focus on police capacity as well, in terms of the ability to conduct investigations and gather sufficient evidence that can yield a maximum penalty.
And the government has been doing some work. It's just a matter of scaling up.
Absolutely. So I think that's where we should focus, is what I'm saying. So we go back to our trivia for the week. This is a simple question this week, so I don't think you're getting $1,000 credit, but I'll let the producer answer that for you when you respond. So the question is, in what year was the Charter of Rights, and that is Chapter 3 of the Constitution, amended? So in what year was it amended? Well, I should say last amended, because as we spoke about last week, an amendment is upcoming, right?
And an amendment was done in 2015.
Okay.
But that was for the local government. So.
Oh, I see. I see.
That was the last one that was undertaken. All right. So today we're talking young people business, right? Youth and civics.
Yes.
And it's a conversation that we've been having for some while now. Especially Jade, who likes to think that she's young, but I would remind her that she really isn't. But she thinks she is. But let's move on. Civics and youth actually is the language here. We're going to be joined by Mr. Shane Kerr, who's the G2K president, and Ms. Sharian Henry, who's a JP and junior shadow spokesperson on justice for the People's National Party. So last year we were quite happy.
Yes.
When the Minister of Education, the Honourable Fayval Williams, indicated that they're going to be launching, or they did launch, the Civics Education curriculum. I haven't had the opportunity to look at it yet, but it's certainly happy news, yeah?
Yes.
All right. So the minister indicated that with the reintroduction of civics comes out of deep concern about the levels of incivility and lack of respect for self, others, and authority that continue to be displayed across the country.
She also stated that by adding civics to the curriculum, students will be able to better comprehend the pride, dignity, and seriousness of being a Jamaican. I think something that we would have heard before. In fact, in 2012, then Minister of Education, Ronnie Thwaites, he had also pushed a reintroduction of civics into the school curriculums at that time. How successful it was, I'm not sure, but that has constantly been a conversation.
I remember reading that big red book when I was growing up.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So also speaking at the ceremony at the time was President-elect of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Leighton Johnson, who emphasized that with the reintroduction of civics curriculum, it is hoped that the teachers can impact the minds of students and influence them to become decent citizens who will embrace positive values and attitudes, resulting in good ethical practices. I think the question that we have been asking ourselves, however, as individuals, what impact will it have?
Yes.
But, outside of civility, for me, when you put up the trivia question just now, as I said, I'm privileged to be educating older persons from age 18 to 40s.
Yes.
And when I ask what are some of the human rights that you have, your basic civil liberties, political rights, persons are unable to tell me. So, we don't know our fundamental rights and freedoms in this country. And I think this is part of the issue that we're having. So we're going to be discussing that shortly, but we take the break. Welcome back to Let's Start Justice again. Happy Tuesday. I tell you at the start of the program, Jade and I were not doing too well, but I'm pushing through, and we're going to be showing that youth goes up to age 40.
Oh, wow, that's what we're going to be showing. Okay.
Yeah. So let's push ahead, right? That's not in keeping with any UN age bracket.
No UN definition for young person.
Yeah, but it goes up to age 40 for me. So let's push ahead. We're discussing civics and youth. We're joined by Mr. Sheldon Royce. Unfortunately, the president, Mr. Shane Kerr, was not able to join us, but the vice president, we thank you so much for being with us. And we're also joined by Ms. Sharian Henry, who is the Justice of the Peace, or is a Justice of the Peace and junior shadow spokesperson on justice for the parliamentary opposition. Thank you so much for joining us, to you both.
A very good afternoon to you and to all your listeners.
We appreciate it. Ms.
Good
Henry?
afternoon. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let me start with you, Mr. Royce. What role do you think the youth representatives from the political parties can play? I think when you look, for example, at the high voter apathy that exists, what role can you play to really be easing the minds of youngsters and having them more interested in political participation and other areas of their civic duty?
First, let me use this opportunity for somebody that works in the education sector, I can say unreservedly that I understand the dynamics of the importance of civics, and understanding that dynamics, that I would have brought the discussion to G2K, and G2K has decided that we want to ensure that we do a a serious campaign that educates youth. And this campaign will collaborate with the Ministry of Education. We want to educate Jamaicans and the youth of the importance of civics. We believe as G2K that it is civics as is an avenue where we can allow persons to decide as to the fundamental beliefs system that will guide them into deciding which political party that they want to be a part of. And G2K is serious about this campaign. We're serious, and we've started having discussions with the minister. And in very short order, you're going to be seeing these campaigns out.
Ms. Henry, from your standpoint, what more can be done? Yes.
Good afternoon again. So I believe that in order to reduce the voter apathy, it's important that we employ some sort of social, marketing campaigns in the schools, in the communities, in the churches, targeting young people, because the truth is, they form a larger part of the demographics of any country, or of Jamaica in particular. So if we tackle them, if we have a structured approach, coming from the government and try to trickle it down into the schools and communities, showing the importance of, voting and, politics and governance and good governance and these things. Persons, they'll be, vibed up and want to learn. So it's how we package it and deliver it to them.
Yeah, thank you so much. Jade?
Yes, so Ms. Henry, I would continue with you. Do you think that first of all, have you seen the new civics curriculum that's being implemented in schools now?
No, Jade, I haven't seen it.
Okay, so do you think, regardless, do you think that a civics program could be something where the voter apathy issue is addressed? Do you think it will have any impact as a program taught in school to actually address this issue?
It will have an impact, because they always say that you bend the tree from its young. In the same way you socialize them into certain things, from their young. So as I said earlier, once you package it properly, starting at the primary level, moving into the university level, because I think civic engagement and civic education should be continuous, right? Over time, they'll become critical thinkers, looking forward to what's happening in their country, be very vocal about what is happening. So it's how well we package it, but starting early is certainly good with the civic policy or program.
And that leads me to another question, and I'll direct this to Mr. Kerr. As a youth leader, Mr. Royce, my apologies. As a youth leader yourself, what encouraged you to be a part of this process, and what do you think our listeners or the parents of some of the people that might be involved in something like this can take away from your experience?
Well, growing up in Spanish Town, and I was growing up in volatile communities, I wanted to be a part of the solution. And I wanted to be a part of the solution, not just by sitting and looking. I wanted to make my mark, and I wanted to go out there and demonstrate that I can be a part of a system that believes in Jamaica, a system that believes in development of every citizen of Jamaica. And I decided, you know what? This is the route that I'm going to take. I'm going to be a part of an organization that is an illustrious organization who historically has demonstrated that they are in the business of Jamaican and in the business of youth. And that is why I decided to be a part of G2K. That is why I decided to enter the political landscape. And while I may not have any vested interest in being a political representative in terms of representing a particular geographical location, I've always seen it imperative. Many of us, we sit at home and we say, boy, now go on to Jamaica. And we sit around and we make no effort to contribute to anything at all. And I didn't want to be one of those persons. I wanted to effect some amount of change, and that is why I became a part of G2K and a part of the political climate. And what is funny though, a lot of people think that politics is dirty and they have the worst things to say about politics. The truth is, I believe that even if you think that it is something is dirty. I think we can all add some value to something and turn it around.
You know, but just to pick up with you, you mentioned that you're an educator, and one of the things I realize is sometimes how we teach, it's not engaging. And you know, when I ask persons, for example, what are some of the rights that they have, they mention First Amendment, Second Amendment, which, you know, it's ripped from the US cable TV.
Absolutely.
What can be done differently within the formal education system in terms of how we teach, what we teach? You know, I may ask a youngster who is the head of state, and they would say Andrew Holness, because they don't understand the difference between your head of state or the head of government. So even something as fundamental as that, it's not something that is readily known by a lot of people, you know. So how can we change dynamics of teaching and educating these fundamentals in schools?
All right, so say as an educator, I was taught in my years getting my formal teaching certification that for you to teach an effective lesson, you have to discover your type of learners, and you have to provide stimulating activities that will garner the interest of those students. I think in Jamaica, a lot of people are staying away from politics because they are not sensitized as to the fundamentals or to the policies that need to be driven. I suggest that we do campaigns, ads, put it out in social media. I don't see much of that, and I must use this opportunity to commend the Bridge for the work that they've been doing. But I'm not seeing much.
I'll take it from JFJ though, that commendation. But please continue.
But I'm not seeing a lot of. I think campaigns to the various social spaces. I'm not seeing anything on Instagram, anything on Facebook.
So
and
TikTok video and the excitement and so on.
I'm not seeing that.
Yeah.
And I believe that if we can capitalize on that market, then we're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
I also agree with my colleague, right? I think that the social marketing campaigns, they're important, right? When you look at the social studies curriculum, because I taught at grade 6 at the Iris Gelly, at the Iris Gelly Primary School.
Mm-hmm.
The info is there in the curriculum, right? But what's important is just these stimulating activities, videos, get them to act out certain things.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, if it's a national approach coming from the government to the schools and the communities, it will be something that the schools, they'll be willing to participate in. So a campaign, for example, Know Your Rights 101, something as simple as that, right? It will help to change the dynamics and the thinking or the lack of knowledge thereof in the schools and communities. Because the truth is, Jamaicans really and truly, they don't know their rights.
Yeah. And Sharian, if I may call you by first name as well, Sheldon.
Sure, that's fine.
Thank you.
That's fine.
You're the shadow, the junior shadow spokesperson, which you see where the parliamentary opposition, if you will, is doing a little bit of succession planning or understudy. How has that played a role for you and youngsters in terms of preparing for any possible engagement in the political process? So how has that been?
So my senior is Senator Scott Motley, right? And for example, if I have a press release idea, run it by her, right? Quick response. If I have a commentary idea, run it by her, quick response, right? Even in school, if you're writing something and you know that she's versed in this, you write it and then she can critique it, right? So I think that it has been a good engagement thus far, right? In terms of the laws of the land, the justice portfolio, you learn so much from her. And I think that bringing me into meetings and stuff, to see what's really happening, especially for mediation and alternative dispute resolution. I think that, she is trying her best to just bring me in that space to be more versed on it and to understand what is really happening in Jamaica. So I really appreciate her
It's
for
a
that.
possible future minister as well. Please
Indeed.
stay with us, Sharian and Sheldon. I want, when we come back, if you could just walk us through some of the energies that you perhaps, I remember going at UA and both the PNPYO and the G2K, they were very active at that time. So I would just want you to have an opportunity to talk to our listeners about the work that your respective organizations are doing. But we take the break. Welcome back to Let's Start Justice. We are joined by Mr. Sheldon Royce, who is a vice president with G2K, and Ms. Sharian Henry, who is a JP and junior shadow spokesperson on Justice for the People's National Party. Thank you so much for being with us. But before I continue, Jade and I just want to remind our listeners that you can call in at 676-4996 or WhatsApp your views at 239-7583. Before we get into the specifics, lady and gentlemen, just a question though. We've been focusing on the matter of political participation a little bit earlier and tying that with the civics. But from where you sit, or let me not ask that one, we've been focusing mostly on formal education.
Yes.
But one of the issue that we have a lot of out-of-school youth. We have persons who have passed through high school, they're in the communities, they don't understand things such as holding our politicians and public officials accountable. How do we tap into those individuals, not only with social marketing, but what else can be done? Sharian, let me start with you. What can be done at the community level to engage people about civics?
The community level, we'll have to look at it from the standpoint of, we have to go back to the politics, right? Because you talk about the out-of-school youth.
Yeah.
Now, if, for example, for the People's National Party, we have a political education committee or commission, right? And I know that there are times when persons, they just walk about with flyers, with information sheets about the politics, for example, about good governance, for example, just distributing information in these communities. The last one I know, which was done in, I believe it's a Trinity Division, Kimberly Thompson. She was just there because she's very good at it. She was just there distributing these things and just having those conversations with the guys on the corner.
Yeah.
So at the community level, just a one-on-one, bringing it down to their level, right? For them to, show some interest and pose questions to you as well as the messenger. That is good.
But Sharon,
So
I'm
it
going to
has-
take a little jab at you though, and I hope Sheldon would allow me to take a little jab at him as well. It's a nice interview that we're having, but one of the perspective people will have, or perception, whether real or perceived, is that sometimes the junior, if I can call it junior political parties, the youth representatives, it almost seems as if it's an echo chamber for the political parties. You don't get a sense that you're really out there doing the work, educating people. For example, constitutional reform is happening now. What is being done? And Sheldon, I will pose the same to you. You don't feel that energy. I don't know if we're wrong because we're not in the communities, but you don't feel that energy from the youth groups.
I can speak for the PNPYO, right? I know that in February and January of this year, they have done a school tour, right? In rural areas as well. And what was the focus of it then is really the importance of youth participation and good governance, right? So I know that, and that has always been our approach when we go into schools. How, we can inform young people about what is happening in the country, and not necessarily from a political standpoint, but from a national standpoint. What are some of the issues? How can you become involved? Because at the end of the day, we know we're at a point where people don't really want to hear about the politics, they want to hear the truth.
Yes.
So when you engage them and inform them about what is happening in their country and how to get them involved, the truth is that, of course, you're going to tell them to join your movement.
Yes.
Right? But it's how you do it and how you deliver it. And I think we've done a pretty good job at that. The youth, the PNPYO.
Thank you. Sheldon?
All right, so let me say this. I'm not taking the jobs, but nonetheless, I can say unreservedly that while G2K is an affiliate of the Jamaica Labour Party,
Yes.
we don't necessarily disagree with or agree with all the policies. And what this government does, they facilitate healthy discussions, and we're appreciative of that. And they don't just facilitate discussions, but they also allow us to give some suggestions. And these suggestions, I think, while this is not necessarily reported to the public,
Yes.
these discussions bring across some of the policies that exist. These discussions encourage some of the reforms that exist right now. And as it relates to other aspects of the party, I can tell you unreservedly that these town halls, these community meetings, whenever the representatives meet at caucus meeting and those, they are encouraged to have discussions with the youth, those who you would consider to be a nuisance to society, those who would have probably been who would have gone to even through the prison systems. And with all of that said, Jamaica Labour Party is a party that believes in the country. In every citizen of Jamaica. We believe that everyone in this country can become a quality product of society. And we don't just believe it. This is a message that transcends over generation. And G2K continues to send that message.
Thank you so much, Sheldon.
Yes, well, I will just ask for you both to give us your final thoughts on...
Well, how can people register with both
Yes,
G2K
because I was going to
and
say, how can people get involved if they're interested in either...
You're still having meetings on campus? Sheldon, let me start with you.
In terms of the
yes, tertiary level.
There is the CMU, there is the UE, there is Michael, there is UTech, and we are trying to get we are trying to arrange something for Northern Caribbean University.
You mentioned UCC?
I'm sorry?
You mentioned UCC as well?
No, Northern Caribbean University.
Okay.
NCU.
Yes.
We still have our parish chapters that are very active, doing well out there. Basically, that's where we're at in terms of chapters and sites.
Sharian, can you differentiate between PNP-YO and the Patriots for the listeners?
Well, the Patriots is really the young professionals, right, of the party, and the PNP would say it starts at age 33 and beyond. And
also, the older people like me can join if I want to.
So yes, you know
but
that
G2K,
you're not a youth.
G2K is an all age group. But PNP-YO, you differentiate.
But the PNP-YO is 15 to 33 years, and then the Patriots is beyond that.
You were saying, Sheldon, 1 second, Sharian, you were saying, Sheldon, G2K stops at what age?
G2K, once you're in an institution and you're from that age to 40, that's where...
so I'm still 15 then. I'm not so old. Thank you so much. You were saying, Sharian, sorry, I just wanted to get the age.
We have the UE Visions, we have UTech Visions, we have Micro Visions, we have the CMU Visions. Right, I believe up to 2 weeks ago, we had a tour on the UE campus. Last week, we had a same civic engagement session on campus where Senator Gabriela Morris was a guest speaker, as well as Mr. Raymond Price. Now, as it relates to joining the PNP-YO, you can reach us at 978-1337 or email us at gensecpnpyo@yahoo.com.
Thank you so much. Sheldon, how can people join G2K?
All right, so you can just go on the g2k.com website and fill out an application form, and that is it.
And by the way, I am an affiliate with adjunct lecturer with UCC, And if you both don't mind, I would really encourage you, and I don't mind speaking off air with you both, because I need my students to participate in the political process. So, I teach politics. So I would really want them to have the freedom to join either of your organizations, yeah? But Jade had asked you for last word. So last word from Sheldon, last word from Sharian. Why should people join G2K and why should people join PNPYO? Starting with you, Sheldon.
G2K is the best political youth organization, in my opinion, and I will say that without any reservation. G2K will foster growth, and the things that G2K has done for me personally, I'm a testimony to that.
Mm-hmm.
I have no reservation in declaring myself as a labourite anymore. And I can say that I am now able to have healthy conversations wherever I go.
Yes.
And I'm proud of what I'm a part of.
Perfectly.
Thank you, Mr. Royce.
Thank you. Sharian?
I'm a proud member of the PNPYO, and I think that persons should join us because we are vocal, we are vibrant, and at the end of the day, we want to achieve Vision 2030. So I encourage everyone to just come on board and be a part of the change that we want to see in Jamaica.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you to you both for joining us.
We appreciate your perspectives. Have a good day.
Yes, we will take a break shortly, if I am remembering correctly.
You're about 45 seconds out.
Okay, and then when we come back from the break, we will be having our call-in section. So if you would like to join our discussion, you can call 676-4996.
But before we take the break, just to indicate as well that I hope the listeners who were paying attention to both the G2K and the PNPYO rep, it's an important stepping stone. Yes. I actually attended both meetings when I was on university campus.
And I'm hearing we have a caller, so I don't even know if I should stop you right now.
We'll take the caller. No? All right. You can go ahead. Just tell us your name, please.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Han.
Anne?
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Thank you for calling in.
The answer to the question is 2011.
Oh,
you're answering our trivia question. Wow, what an interactive response.
And even though you're calling, we still have to do a timestamp to see if you're the first. But since we have you on the line, though, let me ask you a question. What do you think we can do a little bit to educate and encourage our young people on civics and participating more? Anne? But come and you run out of the credit. You come we have to give you a brata just for calling in. And you're with us?
Okay. So
I will lost Anne. So we're going to take the break and then we take some more calls. Welcome back to Let's Start Justice. We are discussing civics and youth. And you can call us at 676-4996 or WhatsApp your views at 239-7583. So Jade, one of the questions that would have been posed to me is, what exactly is in a civics curriculum?
Yes.
So we haven't seen the curriculum ourselves. We have been asking several colleagues. If you remember, a couple of weeks ago, we had Mr. Golding, Stephen Golding with us, who did it was an excellent interview.
Yes,
when we focused on Garveyism. So what are some of those things that you would hope to be in the curriculum, if you can remember? From what you learned growing up?
To be frank, and I think it's quite sad. I don't recall having civics as a part of my curriculum. And
okay.
I'm not going to give away my age on air, but let's just say I'm not yet 30. So I can't recall having ever encountered anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, my interest in it, which you've chastised me about because it was limited. My interest in it. Yes, you said I need to know more about my politics and my history and my political history. And I don't disagree. But my mother has always been very interested in political history in particular. She's not very political herself, but that was what allowed me to have that interest. And I wouldn't say it was something I saw my peers having an interest in. So I think what I'd want to see is the curriculum presented in such a way that students can see how it benefits them to know this information. Because I think a lot of the times we bombard students with information, and we, having gone through so much experience in life, can see its value. But to them, they're like, this has no bearing on my life right now whatsoever. I'm more interested in sorting out my grades and putting food together and that kind of thing. So I think,
and that's for a well-adjusted child, interested in sorting out grades.
Well, that's true. So I think we have to find a way to make it something that is relatable to their lives now as well as in the future.
Yeah. You know, I as I said, I remember being on campus and at university level. And when it comes to sectoral debates, budget presentations, it was something I've always tuned into.
Can't relate.
It couldn't miss me at all.
Yeah.
And, you know, and there are some moments that stuck with me. You know, I remember the cassava presentation from Dr. Christopher Tufton. At the time, he was Minister of Agriculture. You can pick up my age. I don't shy away from it. I'm a couple of years away from 40. It's fine. So when you look at things like that, you pick up, you have an interest. Political history. I think things as basic as not even knowing the contribution of our national heroes, for example, is something we need to really take stock of. And, you know, I read just over the weekend, for example, Chief Taki, and I think Montague MP from down by St. Mary, giving an indication that maybe the government may very well give Taki his rightful place as a national hero. But very few people understand the importance of things like that. And as I was saying earlier, you ask somebody, what are some of the human rights that you have? And I asked that question to some students just last week. And they said, Miss, we have the right to tertiary education. I said, poor Uno.
You know.
And I said, no, it stops at primary levels. You don't have such right.
Yes.
But they were just guessing and just throwing things out there. Or they tell you what they learn on Law and Order. No detective stabler. This is what you have. Because they don't know what happens in our constitution. And that's problematic.
Yes,
So,
I agree.
So we need to do a little bit better. But yeah.
Well, what I would say is that I think part of the issue, which is something that you pointed to while we were interviewing our guests, is just what is even taught in our current curriculum. So, for example, I would say that I was an excellent history student that was very organically interested in history and would have done my own reading and research as a student. I never learned the greater context of the labor riots around the Christmas Rebellion when I was in school. And I went all the way up to Cape with history, and that never became a part of the context. So I think that even the way...
So you're just studying just to pass?
Yeah, you're studying dates and times, and the significance in our direct context is not being pushed across as it should be.
You know who was my history teacher at A-levels? Mr. Raymond Treasure. He's the principal of York Castle High School, and you see how excellent he is.
Well, I would say my Cape history experience was great, but I think the curriculum limited what my excellent and rest his soul, he died late last year. Mr. Ramdeen Singh was an excellent history teacher, one of the pioneers in Cape history, actually. So I do think that it's not necessarily that the teachers aren't trying, but I do think that the goal-oriented way that curriculums are structured really prevents them from maybe getting into what would be a more holistic...
it's not the critical thinking and the history or the importance thereof. As you said, let's know the dates and what were some of the key things that happened here.
And even the way how they examine you on it, you're not encouraged to do... that kind of critical thinking.
And, as we were talking, and this is a conversation we've had as well, the admin officer at JFJ, I think she's tired of me as well, because sometimes I would say, watch news, what go on in the country.
Yes.
These things are important, because I think if the only minister one can name is the Prime Minister, which is our Chief Minister, I do find that problematic. I think as Jamaicans, for example, we should know all of our ministers. Everybody that's sitting in cabinet, you need to know who they are. Because how do you hold people accountable if you don't know who they are,
yes.
for example? It's the point of the conversation is how do you even demand accountability and self-respect if you don't know what your rights are?
Mm-hmm.
How do you treat others well if you don't know what your responsibilities are? And when you look at it, it translates in so many different ways. You look at jury duty, for example, and the dismal performance, for lack of a better terminology, in our ability to really get jurors to serve,
mm-hmm.
because people will try their best to get out of jury duty. And I know it has its challenges because, for example, that ridiculous amount that they have paying people when you have a significant number of people in the informal economy. But even outside of that, people don't want to serve. People don't want to do certain things. You look at Labor Day. Labor Day is just a grand holiday to rest.
Mm-hmm.
The pride in labor isn't there, where people will get up and do work and do voluntary service for others, and it's something for us to really take stock of. How do we build a better country if we don't teach our youngsters the importance of voluntarism?
I think it's more of the importance of community, and I think a lot of what has derailed the way how we've been able to work together is this idea of individualism, and self-success. So I do think we need to go back to a community-oriented mindset where we are building together as a nation rather than each individual trying to add their 2 cents.
Yeah, and as you mentioned that I've had the privilege of working with the Council of Voluntary Social Services, CVSS, which was formed in 1940, 4 years before we achieved universal adult suffrage. So you see how long ago CVSS has been around, and that post-1930s labor riots when we were developing a voluntary sector. And one of the things I used to do in that job was to go to universities, primary school, and teach kids how to be good volunteers. Not like my son who said, listen, if I do X amount of work, I need stipend for it. And he needs his money before he actually starts working. I don't know which life he's living. But, I've tried to teach him volunteer work and giving back, that sense of pride, nationalism.
But I don't blame them for the cynicism, because I think that to want to give to community, you need to feel community around you. So I think we have to work on both simultaneously. Like, we do need our actors that are going out there and doing the work, but we also need our community to acknowledge these actors and build on the work that they are doing. And I do think that the youth try. Like, I remember being a part of Model UN in school, and those kind of mock governance clubs, and I think they really do try to bring a sense of pride and information to young people. So
just need a little bit of scaling up and again rethinking. We're now in the TikTok era. I don't fully understand it, but this is where I stick to my age. I can understand this TikTok thing that y'all have going on, but
I will say it has been powerful, and maybe we haven't harnessed it as a nation, but I have seen nations harness it and use that platform to mobilize young people to care about issues that affect them.
So we just have to tap into the use of technology and social media and see what can be done differently to energize our young people a little bit more. And we're coming up on Child's Month, watching the time. But I hope for May, you will not be seeing Jade and I. Well, you won't be seeing me. But I hope you will have a youngster here from May. Somebody who can really speak on the issues.
At least for the first show, we'll do our best.
Okay, all
Yes.
right. Over to you with your trivia question.
So you heard our trivia winner, I think. If that person was not the winner, then our producer will reach out to you and let you know. But I think you were the winner, so congratulations, Anne.
And if Anne is not the winner, I think we need to give Anne at least $100 credit so Anne can call back next week.
Hope the producer is hearing that. So I would like to thank you all for coming. The answer to the trivia question was 2011. That's when the Charter of Fundamental Rights was amended. I am Jade Williams.
I tell you, Jade is out of it. I am Mikel Jackson. I affirm it. Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure having you, and we will see you next week. Have a good day.
Jamaicans, by justice, the people's champion.